What's up guys, welcome to another video of the how-to series. So today I'm really excited to bring you guys a video because we're going to be talking about all the building blocks of a successful squat. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the low bar squat specifically. It is a common practice versus high bar in powerlifting, and I'm assuming most of my following clients, all that stuff, like I coach powerlifters, so we're gonna be talking about the low bar squat. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about high bar, front squat, all that stuff in different videos, but today we're gonna be talking about the setup, so how to set up properly and how to build tension in the upper back. We're gonna be talking about bracing, so how to brace properly with a barbell on your back. We're gonna be talking about the descent, so how to build tension while you're going down and traveling into the hole. And basically not be a bag of milk. The bottom, we're gonna be talking about the hole, and then we're also gonna be talking about the ascent as well. So this is a really great video for you guys, not only to improve your squat form, it's really important in powerlifting to lift with technique, not only just raw strength, contrary to popular belief. A successful lift not only is a strong lift, but it's also a pretty lift as well. So if you're squatting pretty, you're probably gonna be lifting some pretty ass weights, so let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is the setup. So a lot of people ask, where should my hands be? Should it be wide? Is narrow best? All that stuff. So in powerlifting, your best friend is the word tension, okay? So whatever allows you to build the most tension with good form. There are a couple points here that are going to be limiting factors in where you put your hands. So you could close your eyes and just grab the bar, and wherever you grab the bar, that's where you can start. But if you all of a sudden, let's say I close my eyes, grab the bar here, and I'm going to be unracking the bar, I'm not building a lot of tension and it actually feels quite weak. Okay, so grab the bar probably about shoulder width or so. We want to go as narrow as possible as shoulder mobility allows. Okay, so if you guys are going so narrow that it's causing shoulder impingements or shoulder pain, that's just going to take away from your bench session that you're going to be completing the next day or even after squats. Okay, so and then that can start with like tendonitis in your elbow and your shoulder and just a whole other plethora of problems. So go as narrow as shoulder mobility allows. Now, this rule is more often applied to anywhere between light to middleweight classes. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit different for heavyweights since they are huge, the big boys, and their grip often sometimes can, like, they require the racks being in and their grip is super width. Now, that is the exception to the rule right now. It still generally applies. You want to be as narrow as possible, again, as shoulder mobility allows. And I want you guys to focus, once that barbell is on your back, you're pulling everything to the center of your body with your elbows underneath the barbell. Okay, so the worst thing you guys can be doing is getting that low bar position and then your elbows are all the way back here. It's because then all of a sudden when you're focusing on trying to brace, like you can't, because your shoulders literally just don't go that way. Okay, so I'm going to be grabbing the bar here. Now, I've been doing this for a while, so I know what works for me. But I'm grabbing the bar, thumbs are around the bar, so that is a rule in powerlifting. I'm going to be going right underneath that meaty part of my trap, okay? So we're not in a high bar position here. We want to make sure that the bar is not too low either, because then all of a sudden this happens, and then the bar is halfway down my back, and that puts a lot of tension on my elbows. Okay, so we're gonna try to find that nice sweet spot right above that lower trap, okay? So we're gonna be standing up nice and tall. I'm gonna walk it out just so I can demonstrate. We don't want our elbows all the way out here. We really wanna tuck them underneath and pull that bar down into my back, and I'm pulling everything to the center of my body. Okay, so I'm not just tucking my elbows under, going like this. I'm tucking it as much as I can, also while pulling that bar nice and close by squeezing my hands really tight. Okay, so the second portion that I want to be talking about here is proper bracing. So after you guys do your setup, so after you rack the bar on your back, walk it out, this is the next portion of the squat that is a really important factor for your success, okay? So if you guys are starting the rep here with soft knees or you're not stacked properly, once you decide to start bracing, so once you start taking that big air going into your belly, it's gonna be you're gonna have a really hard time getting that air into your belly, and it can go into your chest, all that stuff, like you're just setting yourself up for failure if you're not paying attention to this part. Seemingly small, but bigger in the large picture. So after our setup here, we're gonna be walking that barbell out. What I'm focusing on here is stacking everything in a nice hollow body shape, okay? So I'm not having a soft knee. I'm locking my knees out as hard as I possibly can. My hips are not out behind me. I'm getting my hips through and tucking my tailbone, and I'm really trying to close that gap from my rib cage to my belly button, so that rib cage is really locked down to my torso. Okay, and then again, as we're paying attention to our lower body here, we still are cueing ourselves to keep that nice tight upper back that we just did in our setup. So my elbows are tucked, I'm pulling everything to the center of my body, and I'm making that nice pillar position. Now, from here, before we start the descent, I do want you guys to take a huge breath into your belly, and we're pushing our belly out all 360 degrees. So if you were be wearing a belt, not just pushing it in the front, but push it out on the sides too, and the back, like push everything out to increase the intra-abdominal pressure as much as possible to generate tension. And then from here, we're gonna be beginning our descent. So the third portion here is the descent. So there are a few points here that I do wanna touch on. First is getting a nice strong foot position, okay? So this is something that I can touch on more in depth in a different video, but I am going to just touch on it briefly here because it is important. And I don't know if this is the first video that you've seen in the series, but they all kind of bleed together, okay? So you watch all of them. Okay, so the first thing that I want you guys here to focus on is getting a balanced foot. So what that means is that you have 3 points of contact in your foot. The ball of your foot, underneath that 5th metatarsal, so your pinky toe, and your heel. Now, most people are 2 out of 3 heavy, whether they stand on their outside of their foot and their heel mostly, or the inside of the foot, so you see that like pronation. I really want you guys to focus on getting a nice balanced tripod amongst the 3 points of contact. From here, we're also splooting our toes. So imagine you're like a lizard trying to crawl up a wall. So you're spreading your toes and then gripping the floor as hard as you can. And the third, this is the most important part, is generating ankle torque. If this is new to you, it might take you a couple tries to kind of get this right. I recommend practicing it single leg in a lunge position if it is new to you. However, we're gonna be focusing on the 3 points of contact, that nice splooting toes, and while we're pushing our big toe into the floor as hard as we can, we're focusing on externally rotating, so corkscrewing our ankle in the opposite direction. So pushing that knee, not just inactively pushing our knee out, but twisting our shin into an externally rotated position while focusing on pushing hard that big toe in the floor, okay? So this strong foot position is absolutely key in order to use all of our muscles in our legs as efficiently as possible. If you do not focus on keeping a strong foot in your lifts, you are only limiting your potential, and you're probably not squatting with good enough form, okay? So really focus on that. The second thing that I want you guys focusing on here is breaking at your knees and your hips at the same time. So a big common fault that we see here is that silly little hinge first before we descend our squat. I want you guys focusing on breaking at your knees and your hips at the same time while thinking about spreading the floor with your feet. Okay, so if spreading the floor with your feet is it's a common cue that you hear. If it doesn't really like click with you, one thing that you can think about is imagining that there's a piece of paper in between your feet and you're trying to tear that piece of paper. Okay, again, thinking about keeping that strong foot. From here, another cue that I like to cue myself here is flexing my quads on the descent. Now, if you're someone that kind of like does that bend and snap squat where your hips shoot out from behind you, focusing on keeping a nice compact position is really helpful when thinking about flexing your quads on the descent. A cue that I like to use on my lifters here and for myself is thinking about pulling my kneecaps up to my hips while I'm going down, okay? So strong foot, spreading the floor with your feet, and flexing your quads on the descent are 3 cues that are absolutely crucial and work best for most people in order to encourage them to keep a compact position. Another thing that I do want to focus on here is if you are a lifter that has been taught to always squat upright, like erase that out of your mind. It's absolutely impossible for every single person to be squatting in the same way. We're all built differently. We all have different leverages. What I want you guys focusing on here is staying compact in a way that works for you. This is also a low bar position. You are going to be over your toes a little bit more. Erase the notion that you need to be upright in your squat. Find a position where you're breaking out your knees and your hips and staying compact as much as possible, and focus on applying pressure through your feet. All right, guys, so the fourth one here is the hole. More so, this portion here is gonna be talking about faults. So basically what not to do and common errors. So the hole is a part where a lot of lifters will just generate enough speed, like kind of drop it like it's hot and kind of rely on a bounce to get out of the hole. Now, this is not, you kind of see this a lot in Olympic weightlifters, and it's also more common in high bar squatting. It's not good to be learning this. You need to learn the rules before you break the rules. When you see a weightlifter kind of generating that nice quick bounce where they're super explosive out of the hole, that is a notion or a result of them generating so much tension that they are explosive and powerful out of the hole. It's not them kind of turning into a bag of milk and relying on that bounce, okay? So you need to learn, or a fast squat is not necessarily a good squat. A good squat is more often than not, a slower and controlled squat, okay? So don't drop it like it's hot into the hole, control the eccentric and be controlled, okay? If you really struggle with this, I highly recommend programming pause squats into your program. Now, what I want you guys focusing on here is maintaining that nice strong foot that we talked about in the descent. If you have poor ankle mobility, or if you have tight calves, hamstrings, or if you have any tight areas in your hips, you could see some spinning of your feet. So if you're someone that kind of like sees that foot go outwards, that's obviously a cue for you that A, you need to work on your mobility or hip stability or foot strength, and 2, one thing you can use are a pair of lifters. Okay, so slightly elevating your heel to get into a better position. The second thing that I want you guys focusing on is maintaining all that lovely tension that you guys have generated now from the setup and the descent while you're in the hole. Now, this is obviously the hardest portion of the lift. It's not a time to be exhaling your breath. Okay, like hold your breath all the way down, stay super, super tight, and then you almost want to be like a coiled spring out of the hole. Now, one cue that I like to talk about here that I heard at a strength seminar is getting to the bottom of your hole is kind of like an archer with a bow and arrow. If you are an archer where you have that nice bow and arrow and you're waiting, if you guys have ever taken an archery class or seen an archer, they kind of wait. That string is actually on the same place on their face. So then that's how they know, like that's their pulling position or their draw position. And then all of a sudden they wait, and then they let go and they hit that bullseye target. Your squat is the same thing. So that setup, I want you guys to take your time in your squat setup as well, just like how an archer will do their draw, and then them hitting that target is you hitting the bottom of your squat. Now, if you're hitting your hips at a different position every single time, there's something a little bit wrong and something's different. You want to make every rep look the same. Like repetition is your absolute best friend, okay? So really focus here on setting up the same. We're building tension on the descent and we're staying tight as we descend into the hole. Another important part here is the obvious. Our hip crease needs to be below parallel. We don't need to be going all the way down. That's probably not safe or efficient either. In powerlifting, we just need to make sure that our hip crease is clearly below our knee before we travel up again. All right, the last pillar here is the ascent. So we just need to get that bar up out of the hole. However, there are a couple points here to think about while you're getting out of the hole in order to be successful in your squat. The first one here is trying to be too explosive. Okay, so when a lifter thinks about trying to make a rep just move fast versus at the expense of them giving up their ability to maintain control of the bar is no good, okay? So be explosive, but don't try to be too fast where you're losing control of the bar or your body. A common fault that you can kind of see here is when you see a lifter's hips shoot out back before them and their chest drop. Now in a competition, you do see like bars kind of roll over the top of the lifter's head in a failed lift. That's obviously not good, but a really good cue here is to focus on keeping your hips underneath you throughout the ascent, okay? So really focus hard here on maintaining that strong foot position. We're still spreading the floor of their feet. Now, a little bit of knee valgus, so our knees turning in is fine, contrary to popular belief, only if it's within control still. The moment it becomes problematic is A, if it's extreme, or 2, if you don't have control over the movement. Injuries happen from unprepared movement, okay? So this is a whole other topic on its own. We don't need to dive into it today, but how I just don't want you guys to be obsessing with being perfect on your form, but I also don't want you guys to be obsessing with trying to make the lift as fast as possible either. Like have a happy medium into what works for you. It takes time to build strength, to build a nice pretty rep, like often years and years of practice, but if you have a tiny quiver in your knee on the way up, like don't beat yourself up for it. It's something that can be fixed over time through unilateral work, squatting, and just building strength, okay? So one thing I want you guys to think about here is keeping your hips under you, continuing to spread the floor with your feet, so tearing that piece of paper and maintaining a strong foot. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you did find this video helpful and if you liked it, make sure to click the like button and subscribe. This is a series of where I'm going to be uploading a bunch of different videos in the upcoming future. I literally just want to help you guys becoming good lifters, and I'm really thankful to be able to be a part of your journey here. Stay strong, my friends, and we'll see you guys next week. See ya. Like, I can do that again if you want me to. Is that easy to just cut out? Okay. Fuck. How much coffee do you have? A lot. I'm sweating. You can't tell because I'm wearing black.